We're now joined by David Ferreira, the CEO of Nightly.travel. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you.
David, we heard that before the age of 11 you lived in 6 different countries. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I think that's how I got the travel bug. I think that's how I got into the travel industry. So I was actually born in Puerto Rico, but I was less than 1 year old, and then we moved to the US. From the US we moved to Mexico. Mexico we moved back to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico we moved back to the US. US we moved to Portugal. And that's basically where I grew up after the age of 11. So technically it's actually 3 countries because Puerto Rico is part of the US. Yeah. And we did the US and Puerto Rico twice, but I like to say 6 countries before the age of 11.
So it's a lot of traveling. Yeah.
It is.
You ready to pitch?
Yes.
Great.
Right, so my name is David Ferreira. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Nightly.travel, and we're a hotel booking website that basically believes hotels are too expensive. And we're not the only ones that think that. So if you think about the rise of home sharing sites such as Airbnb or HomeAway, while their marketeers want you to believe that they're growing as a result of travelers wanting to live like locals, research tells us that the #1 reason people book Airbnb specifically is because of price. So they view home sharing as a better value alternative to staying somewhere than staying in a hotel. And if you look at average room rates of hotels in cities around the world and compare it with average room rates of Airbnb in those same cities around the world, you see that hotels are generally more expensive than Airbnb. So we want to change that. We want to bring people back to hotels. We want to make hotels more accessible so that people come back to hotels. We think people want to stay in hotels and enjoy full service and all the amenities that hotels have to offer, as long as they're offered at better value. And so what we do is implement a solution that we call hotel switching in order to do that. So hotel switching as a concept is actually quite easy. So it's all about taking the best value nights from one hotel and coupling them with the best value nights of a second hotel. So what a lot of people don't know is that room rates in a hotel often change on a night-by-night basis depending on local demand. So let's say you're going to Berlin for 4 nights and the total price of your room is £420. Most people would assume that that means it's £105 per night, but actually that's not the case. It could be that the first 2 nights were £80 each and the last 2 nights were £130 each. And so what we do with hotel switching is we take those first 2 nights at £80 each and then find another hotel for the last 2 nights that's at a lower rate than those £130, so that by joining those 2 hotels together, you end up saving money versus had you stayed in one hotel alone. People are already doing this manually, but you can imagine that as you start looking at cities where you've got hundreds of hotels and you start increasing the number of nights that you're staying, doing that manually can be quite difficult. And so we've automated the entire process at Nightly.travel. And we've launched a website powered by a powerful hotel switching algorithm. So this website is live. It's called www.nightly.travel. We have access to 75,000 hotels around the world. And the interesting thing is that through our switching algorithm, we've been able to get savings of as high as 70% versus staying in one hotel. So when you think about cities with very expensive room rates, such as San Francisco, London, Paris, etc., that can be significant savings for individuals that are traveling. We think consumers are already used to switching, and so they're already doing it for things like utilities, finance, certainly within travel they're already switching, so connecting flights, and train splitting has gotten a lot of attention certainly in this country in the last few years as rail fares start to rise. So we don't think that switching as a concept to save money is anything foreign to consumers. And in fact, we actually did our own primary research where we reached out to and surveyed over 1,100 travelers in the UK. And over 70% of them told us that if the savings were big enough, they'd be willing to switch hotels. So we think people are ready for this. We actually see 4 use cases for hotel switching. So the first 2 are very much focused on value and savings, and so that's what our core product at the moment delivers on. So it's all about either saving money through switching or making your budget go further, so staying in a nicer hotel in a nicer part of town for the same amount of money. But there's actually a third use case, which is around availability, so unlocking partially available hotels that maybe are sold out for all of the dates that you're traveling, but by picking pockets of availability in those hotels and coupling them with another hotel, you can actually create more staying options for travelers. And the last use case, which is actually where we think that our product eventually needs to migrate to, is what we call experience-based switching. So that's all around giving travelers the tools and the inspiration to split their stay between two neighborhoods in one city so that they can actually experience more of the cities that they're traveling to. And hopefully when we get to questions, we can talk a little bit more about that use case. But for now, as I said, our product is very much focused on driving value as a result of hotel switching. And at the moment, we target value seekers. So we estimate them to be roughly 17% of all global travelers. And we define them as ages 25 to 34. They're both male and female. They have medium household income. But the interesting thing about this group is these are people who want to, when they travel, get the most out of their vacation when they're abroad. So they want to see as much as they can, do as much as they can, but they want every single penny that they spend to go as far as it can so that they can make sure that they walk away with as much of an enriched experience as they can from their trip abroad. In terms of marketing approach, we plan on using kind of all the different marketing channels that you would expect in a modern e-commerce business. To date, affiliate marketing has been one of our most successful channels, but we think that moving forward, once we land funding, some of the most important channels moving forward will be SEO and content generation, but also forging new partnerships with third parties that can drive relevant traffic to our site and convert. In terms of the market, the global accommodation market is huge. It was estimated at $612 billion in 2017, and that is estimated to grow to $795 billion by 2021. But for us, the interesting thing about the market isn't so much the size, but actually the fact that it's quite fragmented. So that means that there's loads of space for kind of new entrants that have a differentiated and unique value proposition to come in and carve out a unique space within that market and still make some considerable amount of money. Our commercial model is quite simple. So we get access, as I said, at the moment to 75,000 hotels around the world through one supplier, which is basically a hotel distributor. They give us a price for each hotel room night. We put a flat markup on top of that price, and that becomes the end price to consumers. We have a very experienced team in place. And I'm very lucky actually to have these guys working with me. So Rick Stewart is our commercial director. He's a serial entrepreneur and has experience in travel, hospitality, and media. And his focus over the next couple of months will really be to forge some of those strategic partnerships I talked about. Santiago is my co-founder. It was his idea. And we have Matthew Cushion, who's our investor director and who's the co-founder of.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, David. Good pitch. Steve, questions?
Yes. First one, maybe the obvious one. Relationships with hotels. Do you need a good relationship with the hotel? Are they going to be annoyed that you're taking the most expensive nights off them?
So it's an interesting question, and one we've talked about with people who work in sort of revenue management businesses, either doing it for hotels or in hotels. And the way they view it initially is potentially that way, but actually they also view it as a way to fill difficult to fill nights, such as shoulder nights. So when they have dips in demand, so let's say if they've got one night, one room on a Tuesday, which is difficult to fill, a model like ours actually helps them fill that room rate that night, and it does it without highly discounting that rate for them.
How much notice do they need to give you those nights? Like, how far in advance will they say, well, this room's not available?
So the relationship we have with our current supplier at the moment is dynamic. So we get access to dynamic rates, so they are live rates as of now. So we can shop as far in advance as almost a year ahead, right. And as long as the room is unlocked and available for us to sell, it's there to sell.
So it's not like a last minute thing that,
No.
next week they're going to have like one spare room, for 2 nights.
Not at all. So as long as it's still available through our supplier, we can have access to it. And it can be anywhere from a room that's available tomorrow night all the way through to almost a year from now.
Oh, that's good.
I'm going to ask you more about the experience-based switching, because I would assume that areas would vary in price in a similar way. So if the demand for a particular area is high because of an event that's on, you'd have thought that all hotels in the area would go up. So is the experience-based more shifting demand, creating demand in other areas?
Yeah, so I think, this is one that we've talked about with people who are in sort of revenue management. And I think you can try and simplify it into something like, okay, there's an event going on in Soho in New York, for example, and so all of a sudden all hotel prices will rise. But inevitably there will always be someone who's trying to take advantage of the fact that their competitors are rising prices, and so they'll actually lower the prices. So that's one. And then the other one is that there are always so many other variables happening in hotels. So there could be an event in a specific hotel that's actually creating even higher prices to go up in that one hotel. And so again, their competitors across the street might actually start lowering their prices to take advantage of that. So it's difficult to sort of simplify it and sort of say, okay, in one specific neighborhood, prices will always go up, will always go down in unison, because what we've seen is there will always be people taking advantage of kind of the mass move up or down to make money off of
see.
That. But I think in terms of experience-based switching, for us, it is about kind of, I think, adding value to that customer as well, because making them feel like they're actually seeing more of the cities that they're traveling to. And there are loads of cities out there that kind of lend themselves very well to this, what we call split personality. So you could think of East and West Berlin, you could think of London with Notting Hill and Shoreditch, you can think of New York with Upper West Side and Brooklyn. So there are so many different cities that have so many different kind of characteristics that lend themselves very well to experience-based switching, that we ultimately think that that's where we need to move to, and still actually kind of delivers on value, because you actually walk away getting to know that city better than potentially you would have had you only stayed in one neighborhood and only gotten to know that neighborhood well.
Yeah. With global incomes increasing, the travel business is booming. Where are your customers? Are they UK based or are they global?
So at the moment, we're very much focused on the UK. We did try a few months ago to venture into the US, but actually found that some of the customer acquisition costs there were a bit expensive. So we may relook at that moving forward, but for now we're very much focused on a UK base. Having said that, our site at the moment is capable of taking bookings in US dollars and euros, and we have seen bookings come from other areas. So although we're not targeting outside of the UK, we are seeing people from other areas book on our site.
And what brought you finally to the UK?
Me, personally?
Yes, after Puerto Rico, Portugal.
So my parents are actually Portuguese.
Yeah.
And so, but I had been living in the US. So after I finished high school in Portugal, moved to the US for university, had been living and working in the US for a few years, and because I'm Portuguese, I knew I wanted to come back to Europe. Didn't really feel like going back to Portugal because I didn't really feel 100% Portuguese, and for me the UK is a great blend of, it's not continental European, but it's not American, it's somewhere in between, and that's sort of how I feel. So it feels like home now.
Oh, David, well, thank you very much for your pitch and for answering all our questions. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
If you'd like to find out more about Nightly.travel, you can do so on Cedars website, which is cedars.com.